Captain Yuna stood tall before the judge, her white uniform crisp and spotless. She faced charges of insubordination, but felt certain her pristine record would clear her name. Judge Siok, a distinguished black man with graying hair, presided over the courtroom. He reviewed the case files with a grave expression. The evidence of Yuna's misconduct was substantial. As the trial proceeded, Yuna's arrogance became apparent. She spoke out of turn, challenging the judge's authority. Her disrespect shocked the onlookers. "Captain Yuna, your behavior is unacceptable for an officer of your rank," Judge Siok reprimanded sternly. "This court demands your respect and cooperation." Yuna scoffed, rolling her eyes. "With all due respect, Your Honor," she said, her tone dripping with disdain. "I don't believe you understand the pressures of commanding a starship. The decisions I made were necessary." Audible gasps echoed through the courtroom at her impertinence. Judge Siok's dark eyes flashed with controlled anger. He would not tolerate such blatant contempt. "Captain, your insubordination charge is well-founded," he declared. "Multiple witness statements corroborate your misconduct. Your disregard for orders endangered your crew and mission." Yuna bristled at the accusation. She believed her judgment was beyond reproach. As a decorated captain, she felt insulted standing trial, especially before a black judge. "Your Honor, I am an exemplary officer," Yuna argued arrogantly. "My record speaks for itself. These charges are baseless." Judge Siok shook his head, dismayed by her lack of remorse. He had hoped the young captain would demonstrate some contrition. Her defiance only reinforced the need for a harsh sentence. Rising from his chair, the judge fixed Yuna with a piercing stare. The entire courtroom waited in tense silence for his verdict. Yuna maintained an air of haughty indifference. "Captain Yuna, your complete lack of respect for this court and refusal to accept responsibility for your actions leaves me no choice," Judge Siok announced gravely. "You are hereby found guilty of insubordination." Yuna's jaw clenched, her eyes flashing with barely concealed outrage. She opened her mouth to protest, but Judge Siok raised a silencing hand. "Given the severity of your misconduct and your lack of remorse, I am issuing an unorthodox sentence," he continued, his deep voice resonating through the courtroom. "You are to be demoted and reassigned, effective immediately." Gasps of surprise rippled through the gallery. Demotions were rare for officers of Yuna's caliber. She stood rigidly, her face flushed with anger and humiliation. "You will report to Captain J of the Starship Horizon to serve as his first officer," Judge Siok decreed. "The Horizon and its crew are hereby assigned a critical mission in the Zeta Quadrant." Yuna's eyes widened in disbelief. The Zeta Quadrant was known for its extreme dangers, hostile alien races, treacherous anomalies, and uncharted worlds. Few ships ever ventured there. Judge Siok met Yuna's furious gaze unflinchingly. He sensed her prejudice and disdain toward him and his race. This mission would test her in ways she never imagined. "You will learn to work as part of a team, Captain Yuna," Judge Siok stated firmly. "You will learn respect for your fellow officers, regardless of their race, and perhaps you will learn something about yourself." With a final bang of his gavel, Judge Siok dismissed the court. Onlookers filed out, murmuring amongst themselves about the surprising verdict. Yuna stood alone, seething with resentment. She had been humiliated and demoted, all because of a black judge she viewed as inferior. Squaring her shoulders, Yuna marched out of the courtroom, her heels echoing harshly on the polished floor. She would report to the Horizon as ordered, but she silently vowed to make Captain J's life a living hell. Little did she know, the Zeta Quadrant would change her life in ways she could never predict. The arrogant white captain was about to embark on a journey that would challenge everything she believed about herself and the universe around her. Judge Siok watched Captain Yuna storm out of the courtroom, her face twisted with anger. He sighed deeply, hoping his unorthodox sentence would teach the arrogant officer a valuable lesson. As Yuna marched toward the Horizon, her mind seethed with resentment. She couldn't believe she had been demoted and assigned to serve under a black captain. In her prejudiced view, Black officers were inferior to whites. Captain Jay greeted Yuna coolly as she boarded the ship. He was a tall, imposing man with rich brown skin and a steely gaze. Yuna barely concealed her disdain as she saluted him stiffly. "Welcome aboard, First Officer Yuna," Jay said, his deep voice calm yet authoritative. "I expect you to follow my orders without question. Is that clear?" Yuna's jaw clenched. "Yes, sir," she bit out, the words like acid on her tongue. Jay dismissed her, and Yuna stalked to her quarters. The small room felt like a prison cell, a constant reminder of her humiliating demotion. As the Horizon set course for the Zeta Quadrant, tensions simmered between Yuna and the predominantly black crew. She made no effort to hide her prejudice, openly questioning Jay's decisions and undermining his authority. The crew resented Yuna's attitude. They were a tight-knit group, fiercely loyal to Captain Jay. Many had served with him for years and trusted his leadership implicitly. Yuna's insubordination came to a head during a dangerous mission. The Horizon had been tasked with rescuing a stranded colony ship from a hostile alien race known as the Zorgans. As they approached the colony ship, the Zorgans attacked. Captain Jay ordered evasive maneuvers, but Yuna countermanded his orders, insisting on a direct assault. "We need to attack head-on," Yuna shouted, her face contorted with rage. "Stop running away like cowards." Jay fixed her with a furious glare. "Stand down, First Officer," he commanded. "I will not risk the lives of this crew on your reckless plan." But Yuna refused to back down. She lunged for the weapons console, intent on firing on the Zorgan ships herself. Chaos erupted on the bridge as Jay's officers struggled to restrain Yuna. In the midst of the confusion, a Zorgan energy beam slammed into the Horizon, sending the ship spinning out of control. Alarms blared as the crew fought to regain control. Captain Jay barked orders, his voice cutting through the pandemonium. "Reroute power to shields. Evasive pattern Delta," he shouted, his fingers flying over the navigation controls. Yuna watched in stunned disbelief as Jay expertly guided the ship through a series of daring maneuvers. The black captain's skill and quick thinking saved the Horizon from destruction. As the ship limped away from the battle, Yuna slumped in her chair, her face burning with shame. She had let her prejudice cloud her judgment, endangering the entire crew. Captain Jay fixed her with a hard stare. "First Officer Yuna, you are relieved of duty effective immediately," he said coldly. "Confined to quarters until further notice." Yuna didn't argue. She knew she had crossed a line. As she was escorted off the bridge, she caught the disgusted looks on the faces of the black crew members. Their contempt stung more than she cared to admit. Alone in her quarters, Yuna buried her face in her hands. She had always prided herself on being an exceptional officer, but now she saw the ugliness of her own prejudice. As the Horizon ventured deeper into the Zeta Quadrant, Yuna knew she would have to confront the darkness within herself. The dangers that lay ahead would test not only her skills as an officer, but her very humanity. Could she learn to see beyond the color of a person's skin? Could she learn to respect and trust those she had always considered inferior? Only time would tell. But one thing was certain. The arrogant white captain was about to face the greatest challenge of her life. And the black judge's verdict had set it all in motion. Confined to her quarters, Yuna seethed with anger and humiliation. She couldn't believe she had been relieved of duty by a black captain. Her prejudice blinded her to her own mistakes. Days passed, and the Horizon ventured deeper into the treacherous Zeta Quadrant. Yuna heard the distant rumblings of the ship's engines, a constant reminder of her isolation. One evening, a chime sounded at her door. Yuna opened it to find Captain Jay standing there, his expression unreadable. "First Officer Yuna, I've come to inform you that we're approaching a dangerous anomaly," Jay said evenly. "All hands are needed on deck. That includes you." Yuna's eyes widened in surprise. She had expected to be confined indefinitely. Jay's decision to reinstate her was unexpected. "Yes, sir," Yuna replied stiffly, trying to hide her conflicting emotions. She followed Jay to the bridge, where the black crew worked frantically at their stations. The view screen showed a swirling vortex of energy, crackling with lightning. "Report," Jay barked. "The anomaly is pulling us in, sir," the helmsman replied, his dark hands flying over the controls. "Engines are at maximum, but we can't break free." Jay turned to Yuna. "First officer, I need you to monitor the ship's structural integrity. If the hull breaches, we're all dead." Yuna nodded curtly, taking her station. She watched the readouts carefully, trying to ignore the growing fear in her gut. Suddenly, the ship lurched violently. Yuna was thrown from her chair, landing hard on the deck. Alarms blared as the horizon shuddered under the anomaly's assault. "Hull breach on deck 7. Yuna shouted, scrambling back to her station. "Emergency force fields are holding, but they won't last long." Jay gripped the arms of his chair, his face grim. "We need to find a way out of this anomaly," he said, "or we'll be torn apart." For hours, the crew battled against the anomaly's pull. Yuna worked tirelessly alongside the black officers, her earlier prejudice momentarily forgotten in the face of their shared peril. Finally, with a brilliant maneuver from Jai and the combined efforts of the crew, the horizon broke free of the anomaly's grasp. Cheers erupted on the bridge as the ship sailed into clear space. Yuna sagged in her chair, exhausted but relieved. She looked around at the black faces of her crewmates, seeing them in a new light. They had worked together seamlessly, their skin color irrelevant in the face of danger. Captain Jay approached Yuna, his face stern. "First officer, I want to see you in my ready room." "Now." Yuna followed him apprehensively, unsure what to expect. Once inside, Jay fixed her with a penetrating gaze. "Your performance today was commendable," he said. "You worked well with the crew despite your earlier actions." Yuna nodded, feeling a mix of pride and shame. "However," Jay continued, "your prejudice nearly cost us all our lives. I need to know that you can put aside your bias and work as part of this team, regardless of race." Yuna swallowed hard. "I understand, sir," she said quietly. "I'm ready to learn." Jay studied her for a long moment. "Very well," he said finally. "Consider this your last chance, first officer. Don't make me regret it." With that, he dismissed her. Yuna walked slowly back to her quarters, her mind reeling. She knew she had a long way to go to overcome her deep-seated prejudice. But for the first time, she was willing to try. As the Horizon continued its mission into the Zeta Quadrant, Yuna threw herself into her duties. She worked closely with the black crew, learning to respect their skills and knowledge. Slowly but surely, the walls of prejudice began to crumble. Yuna started to see her crewmates as individuals, not just as members of a race she had always viewed as inferior. There would be many more challenges ahead in the Zeta Quadrant, but with each trial, Yuna grew as an officer and as a person. The arrogant white captain was learning the true meaning of equality and respect, one mission at a time. Captain Yuna stood on the bridge of the Horizon, her face grim. They had received a distress signal from a nearby planet, but scans showed a hostile environment with dangerous alien life forms. "Captain Jay, I strongly advise against landing on that planet," Yuna said, her voice tight. "It's too risky." Jay studied the readouts, his dark eyes narrowed. "There are survivors down there, first officer. We can't abandon them." Yuna bit back a retort. She knew Jai was right, but her instincts screamed danger. "I'll lead the away team," Jay said. "Yuna, you'll stay aboard and monitor our progress." Yuna opened her mouth to argue, but something in Jay's expression stopped her. She nodded stiffly. As Jay and his team prepared to beam down, Yuna felt a growing sense of unease. She watched the black officers check their weapons and equipment, a tight knot forming in her stomach. The moment the away team materialized on the planet's surface, all hell broke loose. The bridge erupted in chaos as a massive energy surge from the planet engulfed the horizon. "Shields up! Evasive maneuvers!" Yuna shouted, gripping the arms of the captain's chair. But it was too late. The energy surge overloaded the ship's systems, sending consoles sparking and crew members flying. Yuna watched in horror as the view screen went black, the away team's life signs winking out one by one. For a long moment, Yuna sat frozen, her mind reeling. Jai and his team were gone, possibly dead, and she was now in command of a crippled ship, deep in hostile space. Yuna took a deep breath, forcing herself to focus. She had to get the Horizon and its remaining crew to safety. "Damage report," she barked. The bridge crew scrambled to assess the damage. The news was grim. Engines were offline, shields were down, and life support was failing. Yuna's mind raced. They had to find a way to repair the ship and find the away team. But with their systems down, they were sitting ducks for any hostile aliens. "Ensign Tal, scan for any nearby planets or moons where we can set down for repairs," Yuna ordered. Tal, a young black woman, nodded and bent over her console. "There's a small moon nearby, Captain. It's not ideal, but it's our best chance." Yuna hesitated. Setting down on an unknown moon was risky, but they had no choice. "Set a course, best speed," she said. The Horizon limped towards the moon, its damaged engines straining. As they approached, Yuna's heart sank. The moon's surface was a blasted wasteland, pockmarked with craters and jagged rocks. "Prepare for a rough landing," Yuna warned. The ship shuddered as it hit the moon's surface, skidding across the rocky terrain. Yuna gripped the armrests tightly, praying they would hold together. Finally, with a groan of tortured metal, the Horizon came to a stop. Yuna let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. "All right, people, let's get to work," she said. "We need to repair the engines and find the away team." As the crew set to work, Yuna couldn't shake the feeling of dread. Jai and his team were still out there, possibly in danger. And with the Horizon damaged and vulnerable, they were all at risk. Yuna stepped into the turbolift, her jaw set with determination. She had to find a way to save her crew and complete their mission. Failure was not an option. As the lift doors closed, Yuna realized how much she had come to respect and rely on her black crewmates. The thought of losing Jai and the others filled her with a surprising amount of grief. She shook her head, pushing the emotions aside. She had a job to do, and she would not let her crew down, no matter the cost. Little did Yuna know, the greatest challenge of her life lay ahead, and it would test not only her skills as a captain, but the very foundation of her beliefs about race and equality. The Zeta Quadrant had more surprises in store for the battered crew of the Horizon, and Yuna would have to lead them through it all, one treacherous step at a time. Yuna and her crew worked tirelessly to repair the Horizon on the desolate moon. They scavenged parts from the ship's damaged sections and improvised solutions to get the engines running again. As they worked, Yuna couldn't shake her growing concern for Captain Jai and the away team. She knew they were running out of time to find them. Finally, after days of grueling work, the Horizon was space-worthy once more. Yuna ordered a search pattern to locate the missing crew. They scanned the planet's surface, hoping for a sign of life. Suddenly, a faint distress signal appeared on their sensors. "There!" Yuna exclaimed. "Lock onto those coordinates and beam them up." Moments later, Captain Jai and his team materialized on the transporter pad. They were battered and bruised, but alive. Yuna rushed to Jay's side, relief washing over her. "Captain, are you all right?" she asked. Jai managed a weak smile. "We're fine, thanks to you," he said. "You saved our lives." Yuna felt a rush of pride and gratitude. She had done it. She had led the crew through the crisis and rescued the away team. But their relief was short-lived. As the Horizon prepared to leave the planet's orbit, a massive alien ship appeared on their sensors. "They're charging weapons," Tal shouted. Yuna's heart raced. The Horizon was in no shape for a fight. They had to escape. "Evasive maneuvers," she ordered. "Get us out of here. Maximum warp." The Horizon lurched as the alien ship fired, its shields barely holding. Yuna gripped the armrests tightly, hoping their damaged engines could outrun their pursuers. For hours they played a deadly game of cat and mouse, the alien ship relentlessly chasing them through the Zeta Quadrant. Yuna pushed the horizon to its limits, her crew working frantically to keep the ship together. Finally, they'd managed to lose the alien ship in a dense nebula. Yuna sagged in the captain's chair, exhausted but relieved. She turned to Jai, who had taken his place at her side. "I don't know how much more the horizon can take," she said quietly. Jay nodded grimly. "We need to find a way to complete our mission and get out of this quadrant," he said. Yuna's mind raced. They were deep in hostile territory, with a damaged ship and limited resources. The odds were stacked against them. But as she looked around at her crew, the black men and women who had fought so bravely beside her, Yuna felt a surge of determination. They had come too far to give up now. "We'll find a way," she said firmly. "We'll complete our mission and get everyone home safely, no matter what it takes." Jay smiled, his dark eyes shining with pride. "I knew you had it in you, Captain," he said. Yuna returned his smile, feeling a newfound sense of respect and camaraderie with her black crewmates. They had been through hell together and emerged stronger for it. As the horizon set course for their next objective, Yuna knew the challenges ahead would be greater than ever. But she also knew she had the strength and determination to face them head-on. She thought back to her trial before Judge Siak and how far she had come since that day. The arrogant white officer who had looked down on her black colleagues now stood side by side with them, united in their mission and their shared humanity. Yuna knew there was still much she had to learn and many more challenges to overcome. But with her crew by her side, she felt ready to face whatever the Zeta Quadrant had in store. The horizon sailed on through the stars, its crew battered but unbroken. And at its helm stood Captain Yuna, a leader forged in the fires of adversity and tempered by the strength of her diverse crew. Together, they would complete their mission and prove that courage, skill, and unity knew no color or creed. The Zeta Quadrant would never be the same. Captain Yuna and the crew of the Horizon had been through hell in the Zeta Quadrant. Their ship was badly damaged, supplies were running low, and they still had to complete their mission. Yuna called a meeting with her senior officers, including Captain Jai. They pored over star maps and sensor data, trying to find a way to reach their objective and get back home safely. "There's a wormhole not far from here," said Lieutenant Zara, a skilled black navigator. "It could take us right to the edge of the Zeta Quadrant." Yuna studied the readouts, her brow furrowed. The wormhole was unstable and unpredictable. It could just as easily tear the ship apart as it could deliver them to safety. "It's risky," she said, "but it may be our only chance." Jay nodded in agreement. "We're with you, Captain," he said. "Whatever you decide." Yuna felt a surge of gratitude for her crew. They trusted her leadership, even after all the mistakes she had made. She gave the order to set course for the wormhole. As they approached the swirling vortex of energy, the ship began to shake violently. "Structural integrity is failing," shouted Ensign Tall. "We're breaking up." Yuna gripped the armrests tightly, her heart pounding. She could see the fear in her crew's eyes, but also the determination. "Hold steady," she shouted over the noise. "We're almost through." With a final lurch, the horizon plunged into the wormhole. For a moment, everything went black. Then, with a blinding flash of light, they emerged on the other side. Yuna blinked in disbelief. They had made it. The Zeta Quadrant was behind them, and familiar stars twinkled in the view screen. But their relief was short-lived. As they took stock of the damage, they realized the horizon was barely holding together. They needed repairs, and fast. Yuna made the difficult decision to set course for a nearby starbase, even though it meant delaying their mission. The crew worked around the clock to keep the ship running, nursing its battered systems back to life. As they limped into the starbase, Yuna felt a sense of déjà vu. It was the same base where she had stood trial before Judge Siak all those months ago. She thought back to the arrogant, prejudiced officer she had been then, and marveled at how much she had changed. The Zeta Quadrant had tested her in ways she never could have imagined, and she had emerged a better leader and a better person. Yuna met with the Starbase commander, a stern-faced black woman named Admiral Naya. She explained the Horizon's situation and requested permission to complete their repairs. Admiral Naya listened intently, her dark eyes assessing Yuna's every word. Finally, she nodded. "Permission granted, Captain," she said. "But I expect a full report on your mission in the Zeta Quadrant. The Admiralty will want to know what happened out there." Yuna nodded, her mind already racing ahead to the debriefing. She knew their mission had been a success, but at a heavy cost. She thought of the crew members they had lost, the sacrifices they had made. As the Horizon underwent repairs, Yuna took the opportunity to reflect on her journey. She met with her crew, listening to their stories and sharing her own. She realized that the bonds they had forged in the Zeta Quadrant went beyond mere camaraderie. They were a family. When the repairs were complete, Yuna stood on the bridge, ready to take her ship and crew back out into the unknown. She thought of Judge Siak and the lesson he had tried to teach her. She had learned that lesson the hard way through trial and error, and the crucible of the Zeta Quadrant, but she had learned it well. As the Horizon set course for its next mission, Yuna felt a sense of pride and purpose. She was a starship captain, responsible for the lives of her crew and the success of their mission. But more than that, she was a leader who had learned to see beyond the color of a person's skin, to value the skills and strengths of every member of her crew. The Horizon sailed on, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. And at its helm stood Captain Yuna, a woman transformed by the power of diversity, equality, and the indomitable human spirit. Captain Yuna stood tall on the bridge of the Horizon, her dark hair pulled back in a tight bun. They had finally returned to Earth after their harrowing mission in the Zeta Quadrant. As the ship docked at Starfleet headquarters, Yuna felt a mix of pride and apprehension. She knew she would have to face Judge Siak and account for her actions. Flanked by Captain J and her senior officers, Yuna strode into the courtroom. Judge Siak sat at the bench, his expression unreadable. Yuna took a deep breath and began her report. She spoke of the challenges they had faced, the lives they had lost, and the lessons she had learned. She looked Judge Siak in the eye. "Your Honor," she said, "I stand before you a changed woman. The Zeta Quadrant tested me in ways I never could have imagined, but it also taught me the true meaning of leadership and equality." Yuna gestured to Jai and her diverse crew. "These brave men and women stood by me through every trial. They showed me that strength and courage know no color or creed. They are the finest officers I have ever served with, and I am proud to call them my crew." Judge Siak listened intently, his expression softening. When Yuna finished, he spoke. "Captain Yuna," he said, "when I sentenced you to serve under Captain J, I hoped you would learn the error of your ways. I see now that you have learned far more than that." He smiled. "You have learned the value of diversity and the power of unity. You have become a true leader, one who inspires loyalty and respect in her crew. The Zeta Quadrant has forged you into the captain you were always meant to be." Yuna felt tears prick her eyes. She had come so far from the arrogant, prejudiced officer she had once been. She had learned to see beyond the surface, to judge people by their actions and character, not the color of their skin. Judge Siak stood. "Captain Yuna, I hereby reinstate you to your full rank and command. You have earned it, and much more." The courtroom erupted in cheers. Jai and the crew surrounded Yuna, their faces beaming with pride. As they returned to the Horizon, Yuna couldn't stop smiling. She felt a sense of purpose and belonging like never before. She turned to Jai. "Thank you," she said, "for everything. I couldn't have done this without you." Jay grasped her hand. "We're a team, Yuna. Always have been, always will be." As the Horizon prepared to embark on its next mission, Yuna looked around at her crew. Black, white, human, alien. They were all part of something greater, a family bound by love and loyalty. She thought back to where she had started, a bitter, angry woman, blinded by prejudice. But the Zeta Quadrant had changed her, just as Judge Siak had hoped it would. Yuna had learned that diversity was not a weakness, but a strength. That in the vastness of space, it was the differences between people that made them strong. As the horizon leaked into warp, Yuna felt a sense of exhilaration. The future was bright, and she was ready to face it head-on. She had once thought that being a starship captain meant standing alone, a solitary figure of authority. But now she knew the truth. A captain was only as strong as her crew, and Yuna's crew, her family, was the strongest of all. Together, they would explore strange new worlds, seek out new life and new civilizations. They would boldly go where no one had gone before. And with each step, each challenge, each victory, they would prove that the human spirit could overcome anything, even the deepest prejudices of the heart. The end.